Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now, last month I kicked off a new series and that was everything to do with the junior ISA. Within that video I covered my investment plan for my daughter's future. I also went through the platform I'm using and also the global index strategy I'll be using going forward. Now, it's only been a month but we've already seen some impressive growth. In today's video we're going to do a market recap, so we'll be looking at various factors that might explain this early growth. I'll also then be going through the performance of the portfolio live on the video. So what's been going on within the markets this last month that could explain this high growth? Well, firstly, looking at the US market, there's been a few factors that might have impacted this. One of the most significant was September's job report, which showed that the economy had added 254,000 jobs, which was much higher than the expected 170,000. This strong labour market is often a signal that consumer spending will remain resilient, which in turn boosts corporate earnings, especially in industries like retail and tech. This has helped lift major indexes such as the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, both of which have recorded several weeks of gains. Another major event has been the Federal Reserve's decision to cut interest rates at the end of September. This is part of a broader shift from the Fed, which is now taking more of a dovish stance after over a year of aggressive rate hikes to combat inflation. Now, this cut in borrowing really does impact the stock market. Essentially, it makes it cheaper for businesses to borrow money and therefore expand and innovate. These lower interest rates generally impact things such as bonds and makes them less attractive. In turn, we see a bit of a shift of people moving back towards equities, thus driving the price even higher. We're seeing some of these effects reflected quite heavily within my daughter's portfolio that we'll cover later in the video. We've also seen a strong rebound in the tech sector recently, which is important because tech stocks tend to make up a big part of a global index fund like the one I've gone with. After facing some headwinds earlier this year, companies such as Apple, Nvidia and Tesla have recovered, partly driven by the investors' optimism around emerging technologies like AI. On the global stage, things are quite mixed but remain pretty positive. I've noticed that the European markets have stabilised, and I imagine this is partly to do with inflation starting to cool off. In Asia, markets are showing slow but steady growth as China begins to rebound from its slowdown earlier this year. All of this global momentum has helped feed some growth into my daughter's ISA, which is heavily focused on a global index fund. So with a few points covered there, I think it's about time we flick over to Vanguard and have a look at some of that performance. Okay, so jumping straight into the portfolio here. So this is the overview page. It gives you some nice stats here, such as your remaining allowance, if you like, for the junior ISA, the investments that we've got, which I'll touch upon in a little more detail in a second, and also the performance. So if I jump straight into the investments tab, this is kind of my holdings now. So as mentioned in my previous video, and anyone who may have watched that will know that we're investing in a global all-cap index fund purely from the fact that it's the simplest way to get diversification, and it kind of gives me a bit of a hands-off approach. I haven't manually got to manage this as such. As mentioned, we've had some really great growth since starting this account. If I move over to the performance tab, you can see that we've added in £594.10. So someone who may have watched the previous video, we added in around £500 to start with. This was a collection of money from basically the birth and people gifting us various bits of money. We've also topped that up as well. So we started with around £500. In the last month, we've added a little bit more, so if I move down to this graph here, this was the 500, and then that grew quite well to around £520. Then that jumped up by 50, so my partner and I put in £50. We then got another £30, again, sort of like a late gift, if you like, from her birth. And then since then, we then put an extra £10 in. So that's kind of summarised where we've got to, but the interesting thing here is, yes, we've put in almost £600, but we've gained £30 already, which is a rate of return of just shy of 6%. Now, for 1 month invested, that's amazing growth. I think any investor would be really happy with that. I think there's been a few factors. Obviously, the market conditions that I mentioned, but I also think we were quite lucky at when we put the bulk of that £500 in. Then we've seen the market kind of shoot up, if you like. So really happy with that growth. I think if you compare it to something like a cash ISA, really you'd maybe get 4 or 5% annually, so that's over the year, and we've nearly got 6% in the space of 1 month. So this kind of just shows that the power of investing, really, you know, that kind of growth. I'm under no illusion that this may go down slightly or even decline at some point, but I'll enjoy it while it lasts, certainly. So if I go into the month tab, so you'll see this tab as we go through these portfolio updates. There'll be more data to go off, but a quick snapshot there. You can see September. You can see that was the £504.10 that we started with. And yeah, so we gained around £15.19 in that month. And then October, you can see that extra £90 that's kind of been added there. And the growth we've had there as well. So really happy with that. This figure's great. It gives you an idea each month, is the value growing, which is ultimately the end goal with this. And again, the investments tab, if I had multiple investments, this would probably look a bit busier, but the core is really that global all cap index fund, so there's not too much to show here. It just kind of confirms the growth that we've had. You'll notice that this is an accumulation fund, so there'll never be any income from this. Kind of behind the scenes, if you like, any dividends that we would have got paid are automatically reinvested into this fund. So it just kind of promotes that growth and kind of keeps it as a handoff approach, if you like. So yeah, really happy with the growth there. I'll quickly touch upon the insights tab. I did touch upon this in my first video, but I think this is one of the key points with the Vanguard platform. Gives you a nice snapshot of where that money is invested. We're obviously invested in a global fund, so it splits that for us across various regions, markets, and also companies. So you can see here, it gives you a really nice snapshot of where that money is held. Obviously, quite a high percentage in North America, as you'd expect, and then the others being, you know, sort of split elsewhere. Again, top 10 holdings, always a nice little snapshot there. Microsoft being the largest part in this portfolio, Apple, Nvidia, so basically some of the tech giants take up the top spots within my daughter's portfolio. And then the sector allocation, so with these tech names there at the start, there's no surprise that we have tech as the largest sector here. And yeah, and another little graphic that tells you kind of your performance over the last 3 months. So I guess kind of what's the plan going forward with this? Well, both my partner and I are going to debit essentially £60 a month. So nothing too crazy. And I'm hoping that'll give you a bit of an incline into a realistic portfolio and not one of these people who put hundreds or even thousands into an account that can be kind of somewhat unobtainable. I want to keep this portfolio really realistic for new parents. I think that kind of probably gives the most value as well, just to see that compounding effect over time. So we'll add in £60 per month, but then say if we get any money for birthdays or Christmas or anything like that, we'll also add that to this account and monitor how it grows over the time. But we've got 18 years for all of this money to compound and snowball, so really hoping we're going to have quite a substantial amount in there for when my daughter turns 18. So yeah, I hope that kind of gives you a bit of a snapshot on the last month. We'll continue doing these updates each month. So there you have it. That's a bit of a portfolio update. I'm hoping to do these every month going forward. We've had 6% growth within the space of 1 month, which I think is great, and I'm really enjoying the direction this portfolio is heading in. Very much in this for the long game. As mentioned, we essentially have 18 years to grow this pot of money, if you like, and it's always important to remember, really, that investing is a marathon, not a sprint, so although these gains are great and 6% within 1 month sounds amazing, there are definitely going to be months where it probably declines or stays flat for a while. So I think we've just started on a bit of a high, but under no illusion that things may change going forward. In regards to trying to time the market, there is no plan to do so. So we'll be investing on the first of every month, whether the market is at priced high or potentially priced low. We'll just continue to dollar cost averaging, and over the long run, I think we'll get some great returns with this particular approach. If you've been following along, then feel free to subscribe. That way you can keep up to date with any future updates on this portfolio. I'll also leave the link to my first video up here somewhere. If you're new to junior ISAs and new to investing for your child's future, that video is probably a great watch for you. And it'll also give you a bit of an insight as to why I've chosen this particular fund and also Vanguard as well. So make sure you check that video out. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments section and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.